Thank you. And thank you, Chair, for being before us again. I know these are always two highlights of every year for you. I want to return to some of the earlier discussion of the so-called Brexit, the referendum that will occur in the United Kingdom on Thursday on whether Great Britain should remain or leave the EU. Your testimony on page 4 says, quote, "One development that could shift investor sentiment is the upcoming referendum in the United Kingdom. A UK vote to exit the European Union could have significant economic repercussions." Could, which you stressed to Senator Heller in his comments. That sounds to me like the usual prudence and caution you use in all of your public statements. You also stated to Senator Heller, quote, "I don't want to overblow the likely impacts," end quote. That reminds me of Yogi Berra's old sage advice that predictions are hard, especially about the future.
That's absolutely true. I couldn't agree with that more.
Yet in the last few minutes, here's how The Guardian of London reports your testimony to the committee. Quote, "Yellen warns on Brexit." Not exactly what you said, is it?
I said that we are monitoring it and that it could have consequences.
But you wouldn't,
For the United
characterize
States.
your testimony as a warning on the Brexit?
I have, in this, if that means that I am warning UK residents, I am not attempting to take a stand. They're going to go to the polls. They've had an active debate on the issues, and I am not providing advice in that sense.
Good, thank you. I sympathize when headlines don't exactly capture the exact meaning of what one says. And to be fair to The Guardian, they're not the only outlet that's reported their testimony along those lines. The BBC, Reuters, CNBC, and Fortune have as well. So to be crystal clear, you take no position on whether UK citizens should vote to remain or leave the EU, and the Federal Reserve takes no position.
That's correct. It's up for them to decide. I'm simply saying the decision could have economic consequences that would be relevant to the U.S. economic outlook that we need to monitor carefully.
Thank you for that, because I certainly think that we all in America, and particularly in positions of leadership in our government, should respect the British people's sovereign right to govern their own affairs. The one point you made in your earlier comments about Brexit, about the potential source of these economic repercussions is, quote, "a period of uncertainty." That's something I hear frequently in commentary about the Brexit. Is there any time when the global economy or the U.S. economy does not operate in a condition of uncertainty?
Well, there is uncertainty, but this is a unique event that has no close parallel. It's hard to know what the consequences would be. Of course, there is always uncertainty domestically and globally. We operate in an uncertain environment.
Many of your counterparts in the continent, many of my elected counterparts in the continent, have not treated the matter so even-handedly. They've opined on what British citizens should do. They've also been responsible for other things that have caused uncertainties in recent years, like the Greek debt crisis or other debt crises in Europe, or the suspension of the Schengen zone privileges because of the flow of migrants into Europe, and terrorists now infiltrating that flow and launching attacks in Paris and just a few blocks away from the heart of the European Union. Those would all also potentially cause periods of uncertainty in the European and the global economy, wouldn't they?
Absolutely.
Is there a risk that some of the dire predictions about Brexit could become, or the reaction to the Brexit could become, a self-fulfilling prophecy in the economy? Some British politicians have promised, or perhaps I should say threatened, immediate tax increases or budget cuts if the UK citizens vote to leave. Some continental leaders have threatened punitive and retaliatory action if UK votes to leave. Our own president has said that the United Kingdom would have to, quote, "go to the back of the queue," end quote, for any new trade agreement. Do these statements have the potential to create a self-fulfilling prophecy that would lead to increased uncertainty, whatever the outcome on Thursday?
You know, I don't want to comment on what various participants in this debate have said or the advice they've given the British people. There is an active debate. It's not inappropriate with a decision of this sort for many parties to weigh in about the consequences. As I said, I'm not trying to offer advice myself to the UK residents about to go to the polls.
Thank you, nor am I. One final point, your counterpart at the ECB has said that the ECB is, quote, ready for all contingencies following the UK's EU referendum, end quote. Can you say the same thing about the Federal Reserve? You're ready for all contingencies following the vote on Thursday?
Well, in the sense that we will closely monitor what the economic consequences would be and are prepared to act in light of that assessment.
And should the UK vote to leave the EU, the United States government as a whole and the Federal Reserve in particular will handle that contingency in the spirit of magnanimity, generosity, and friendship among nations?
Well, it would certainly be my inclination to do so.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.